SMG4 is a popular YouTuber, and I'm assuming you've heard of him at least once. He's most known for his Mario 64 skit titled Who Let the Chomp Out, which is standing at a record high of 60 million views. You may have also heard of him from his story arcs, and that's one of the central pieces to today's video. Assuming you've read the title, we'll be going over two antagonists from these arcs. One is newly introduced as of lately, and another who is quite iconic in the SMG4 fandom. So, without further ado, let's begin the analysis. Firstly, let's define the word Eldritch Horror to see how this ties into the video. According to Google search, Eldritch Horror is something that is uncanny, unnerving, or supernatural. Take the Cthulhu, for example. That's Eldritch Horror. Now let's take a turn back to 2021, the year SMG4's channel turns 10. In celebration of this anniversary, they created a movie which was at the time their greatest SMG4 project yet. It was disguised as some happy-go-lucky movie which quickly changed just 15 minutes into the video. Like almost 15 minutes, but whatever, the point is things get dark. These two characters you see keep warning SMG4 of some impending doom, and while they ignore it, the moment SMG3 gets sent to that portal is the moment where this arc really kicks into high gear. The memes we see begin to turn corrupt, and we have this whole fight scene, and it's all fun and games until we enter the deep web. This is when we get the true introduction to Zero, and it's executed perfectly. There is a sense of mystery and horror as you see a pile of Mario clones dead on the floor and this one-eyed beast staring dead into FM and X's eyes. This is not going to be your typical story arc from SMG4. This strange creature observes the power of our two allies, and the tension of the scene is off the walls. Just the silence mixed with an unknown threat lurking in the shadows looming over these two. Anyways, the creature gives chase. We watch as SMG4, SMG3, and Mario try to find places to hide, but we just see corpses of Marios everywhere. Whatever this thing is, it's something unlike any threat before. That's the main highlight of this episode, but there's still one more thing I need to go over before we continue. Later on in the episode, this threat gives Mario some visions that we see. Seems like some flashback. Anyone who's kept up with the story arcs past 2022 would understand what this is, but we will come back to this later. But thanks to this vision, we finally get an official name for this creature, Zero. After this comes a fight scene, but we're gonna glance over that and Zero gets defeated. Well, for now at least, as at the end of the movie we find out the USB they used from SMG3 is now useless and Zero's return is inevitable. This one video leaves us with so many questions. Who is Zero? What does he look like? What is his motives? All these will be answered in the future. The next few videos explain the origins of SMG4 and 3, while at the end of these two videos, we see some teasers as to what's to come for the Genesis arc and Zero's plan. Then finally, on August 14th, 2021, everything changed. The video, The Day He Arrives, subtitled The Beginning of the End, was released, and the return of Zero begins. For a big portion of the video, there's some mystery as to why there's so many Shreks, but at the 4-minute mark, everything is explained. Another terrific moment in the Genesis arc is when Zero's official return is shown. Everyone in the scene is in distress as Zero awakens from the Guardian Pod and begins searching for a host. Unfortunately, Zero finds one, and it's none other than Axel. Also, for a majority of the arc until the end, we see slight hints to Zero's actual form, and one of these hints come from this scene. In a very ominous way, Zero rises from the USB and takes over Axel. From here, the Guardian Pod awakens again and flies onto the castle. This is where the main part of the rest of the arc will take place. The following episode doesn't have much highlights besides Swag trying to destroy the Guardian Pod, so we're going to move on to the 9th part of this arc, which is where we get a couple more terrific scenes that I would like to point out. So the main plot of the 9th part is pretty self-explanatory. However, what really is horrific is the mystery, because as you soon see, it's not just Mario who arrives here, but SMG4 and 3. Why these three? Who is that giant creature after them? All of this gets answered in the end of the episode, which really encapsulates the horror of this episode. Let's dive into the final scene of this episode. So after all this running, the trio reach an elevator and get sent to the dark web. Axel is there waiting in front of the USB, and we already know something bad is about to happen, since viewers have seen what they haven't, and seen that Zero's already taken a part of Axel. This is further supported by Axel glitching out. The moment is incredibly tense, and then Axel tells SMG4 about the messages we saw earlier this episode, such as the Goomba in the birthday room. Right after this, the trio immediately realizes this is not the Axel we know that is talking to them right now. Zero fully takes over Axel, and even the new model looks insane, keeping up the horror appearance that Zero has and making us believe that they may not come out of the scenario alive. Axel activates the SMG4-3 USB, and SMG4, SMG3, and Mario are sent into Zero's dimension. This scene is so perfect in keeping the fear that was once displayed earlier in this arc, and the nightmare does not end here as we move on to part 10 of the arc. A majority of this episode is Zero tormenting the trio with unnatural settings and unnatural things. I actually enjoyed this episode a lot more than I did upon first watch. Anyways, the majority of this episode is downright horrific. After some mental torture, the trio come across SMG1 and SMG2. And the rest of this episode is really terrific, but just them trying to escape, which they do end up pulling off. But the ending of this episode is definitely a shocker. Zero's now at top of the castle with the USBs, and this is where the episode ends. The final piece and War of the Fatted Tons both have terrific moments, so let's move on to part 11. The beginning of the episode is pretty intense, with Zero using the USB to create a new universe, which ends up failing, and the main point of this episode is trying to protect Mario and stopping Zero. One of the highlights is Axel's second stage of takeover. His body is now halfway erased thanks to Zero, but now, once again, let's move to near the end, where the scariest part of this episode happens. Zero is nearly finished, but somehow he manages to rise back up and knocks everyone off their feet. Not only that, but he traps everyone with chains, and this is the moment where he wins. Using the powers of the USB opens a gate into another dimension. He's not done yet, as he transforms once again into his third stage. Definitely the most terrific part of the series, as Zero does seem to be winning and hope is lost. Of course, then we have the finale for the Genesis arc, and the main highlight for that is the reveal of the original Zero. But after that, he gets destroyed. Overall, this arc has absolutely terrifying moments that does synchronize with the Eldritch Horror product that has been created from Zero. This took up a big portion of my writing, but next up is the new Eldritch Horror antagonist, one that we've seen so little of but could return in the future. Just so you know in advance, we don't have an official name for this antagonist, but the wiki states it as TV adware, so we'll be calling it that. Anyways, 2 years after the Genesis arc, a new Eldritch Horror antagonist is born. During this time, we had another normal antagonist, Lawyer Kong, and the reception for the lawsuit arc wasn't very good. But then on March 10th, something happens. After the Mario Day episode, a stream pops up on the SMG4 channel. It's gotta be perfect. For an entire week, we are left with the stream that slowly devolves into chaos every day as SMG4's room gets darker and darker. Once this countdown is complete, a video is uploaded. It mainly focuses on redesigns, but at the end, SMG3 and Meggy break into SMG4's room, and SMG4 has gone completely insane. This is where we move into the movie, which is where we finally get to talk about our new Eldritch Horror antagonist. SMG4 keeps reciting the words, "It's gotta be perfect," and then we cut to the title card. Already there's so much mystery going on, but we finally get context to all of this in a flashback. SMG4 is trying to make the perfect video, and he slowly goes insane. Luckily, on the same day as March 10th, we see a new face come to help SMG4 with this video, the TV adware. Its introduction is already ominous, showing the keyboard that is all funky and looks like it comes from hell. SMG4 obtains the keyboard, and as he types, he begins to summon something dark. This mysterious darkness takes over the room, and a huge eye looms over. Now we really know that this is going to be an antagonist similar to Zero, as no other introduction to a villain has been like this except for Zero's. Back in the present, SMG4 insanity continues as he summons SMG3 and Meggy into some dark room. I believe we will get context to this eventually later down the line, but we know for sure that this is some Eldritch Horror being when weird tentacles rise up to grab SMG3. Again, that horror that was stricken in the Genesis arc is back here. Meggy pisses off this mysterious demon, and more tentacles rise from the computer and take over the entire castle. There's also a reference to Zero later on, but SMG3 already confirms that this is not related to Zero, and a completely different beast. Another part of the movie I want to highlight is later on in the end, when it's revealed that SMG4 creating this video is actually destroying his body. When Meggy and Mario try to stop him, we see SMG3 is turned into a monster. Not sure if you caught this reference, but this creature is actually another Eldritch Horror type beast from Godzilla creepypasta. Yeah, sounds pretty crazy, but I'll link an amazing video explaining all that by Billy Style in the description. Anyways, they take down the beast and all is well, right? Well, the castle is now destroyed. All that remains is some huge mouth replacing the castle. This movie is kind of like the 10-year anniversary in a way, as it introduces a new villain in an unexpected fashion. But now that we're done with this movie, I'd like to mention one last video that is currently the most recent video in this sort of arc. A couple weeks ago, Our New Home released, which already has a few red flags in the video. The thumbnail literally has a turn back sound, which would seem funny, but after finishing the video, the context has darker meaning. Anyways, the main plot of this episode is SMG4 trying to find a place to stay, and he uses all his money on a place called the Showgrounds. And the moment when he buys it, you can hear the same music as the background music for when the TV adware appears. Also, the Showgrounds has a little TV logo on the side, so we can already tell that this is where the rest of this arc will likely take place. But for now, that is all. I've already pointed out terrific scenes of both of these arcs, and these antagonists work so much better than the usual ones like Luigi and SMG3. Don't get me wrong, they're good antagonists. But in terms of being terrific, this works so much better as in usual SMG4 episodes. You see some funny jokes and near-death experiences being played off as nothing. But when you see this horrendous antagonist with various eyes, tendrils, or mutilated bodies, it feels terrifying because now we're really acting serious and this could be a life or death situation. The Genesis arc has already proved that a main character can be killed in one of these arcs, so it really makes you worry for the main cast because anyone can die. Looking back at this, when Zero took over Axel's body, his body was slowly being destroyed from the inside out, and we were watching it all unfold week by week until it was revealed that Axel was going to die. We see this again almost in the It's Gotta Be Perfect movie when the TV Edward slowly destroys SMG4's body while SMG4 is trying to finish the perfect video. The mystery and shock value plays really well as scenes like Zero taking over the castle and using Mario to create a new universe is already tenfold times scarier than when Lawyer Kong won and Nintendo was claimed the video episode. Also, since there's so much mystery, that means that there's a lot more episodes of movies that will likely come out to flesh out the mystery, like how the Genesis arc technically had a sequel, which was the Revelations arc, which fully showed the entire story of Zero's arc and introduced the God Boxers, which was like a true evil. Anyway, sorry if this was like a super long discussion, I just felt like I had to put more spotlight into this since I also really love Eldritch Horror, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day!